Bernie, you got my number. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool optimist, but I do think that we are entering upon a point at which we can reasonably talk about intelligence, certainly intelligent artifacts, artifacts that issue forth, original, you might even argue highly creative acts that are novel, that are idiosyncratic. They're not necessarily 100% predictable, which is kind of cool because that's a lot of what we observe in animal behavior, human behavior as well. So I have I guess I have a rosy perspective, but I think it's a realistic perspective. I think we're on the right track. And I'm not sure whether this will come to fruition in my lifetime, but I do very well see a path toward conscious artifacts, as my late father would call them, conscious artifacts. I think that there's a road. I can see the road.
Yeah, he actually wrote a road. It's in my office on the bulletin board.
Oh.
Yeah, I went to a meeting sometime in the 2000s, and I sat in on a machine consciousness workshop, and it was just dreadful. And it was just, and I came back and reported it. And your dad, Gerald Edelman, we had a build a brain group. And I said, here's what's going on in the world. And he was kind of appalled, like, that's just not how to study consciousness. That's not consciousness. He goes, I'll tell you what a conscious artifact should have. And then I wrote it down. I wish I had dated it. I have the rough date. I wrote it down in my lab notebook and saved that one page. There were a bunch of steps. I won't go through them that we need to take. We've done some of them, value systems, learning and memory, going to kindergarten, so having some sort of learning and development. One of the hard ones I just don't know how to touch is natural language. There are systems, right, that are very good at language, but there's still a lot of issues, a lot of work. It's not natural. It doesn't have the feeling, it doesn't have the meaning behind the language.
Right.
And to get a conscious artifact, you have to have some sort of report, and the best way to have the report is language. But,
yeah, absolutely.
But that sits on my wall.
That's good.
Every once in a while, I show it to people. But and then I had left, but they started the Conscious Artifact Project after I left, and people like, I think, Jason Fleischer.
Yes, that's right.
And Jeff McKinstry.
Absolutely.
We're looking at Eugene. We're looking at mental rotation and how you do things like that, and building that in systems.
So I think, not to make you blush. Unfortunately, this is an audio podcast, so you won't actually have to watch that happen. But I think Dad would be really proud. He'd be proud of you. He'd be proud that you have that up on your whiteboard or whatever. So let's bring this home, and I want to bring this home by asking you, Jeff. What do you think? Give us a sense, as briefly as you can, but don't hold back. How do you see the road ahead? What do you see happening, and what's a kind of a rough timeline for all of this?
That's a tough one. I think in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to see more and more intelligent systems, and I don't think they're going to go the road of making a conscious system, but they're going to be like one-trick pony kind of things built, and people are looking at biology and how the brain does it, because they realize they've hit sort of an asymptote with this next wave of AI. So when you talk to people on the street or at the agencies, they are starting to look back to the brain science and neuroscientists and ask them, how do you do these things, so we can get over certain things like transfer learning or catastrophic forgetting, or lifelong learning is a big government project. So these things are going to come out. You'll see them in your smartphones, I bet, in your maybe self-driving cars, a bunch of other things, assistants. If you get out beyond that, I think like you talked about with the energy efficiency, you're going to see a lot more exploration, and we can't get to some of these places we want to explore with humans. So you're going to have to see a lot more intelligent systems that are really energy efficient.
Right.
That's going to be happening probably in the next 20, 30 years.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, Bernie, what do you see in the way of the future of all of this? What's your view of all of this? Do you see conscious artifacts in your lifetime? Do you see conscious artifacts at all happening at all?
I'm a skeptic on everything, including, I used to be a skeptic on biological consciousness outside of humans. And I'm no longer a skeptic, so I do have a capacity to learn. I really don't know, and I actually feel rather worried when people essentially take very dumb systems, which has been going on for quite a long time, and started off in the 1970s or 80s, I think, with a system called PARI, the paranoid patient. And you may remember PARI. It was very trivial. It consisted of just a list of questions and answers. And the argument from the psychiatrists who organized this was that paranoid patients, when they get suspicious of the therapist, really are very simple because they're so suspicious, right? You ask them a question, how's your day? And they wonder if you're trying to embarrass them or shame them or make them feel bad. So this was a trivial system that fooled medical students
Right.
who had just learned about paranoid schizophrenia the week before, and now they had a chance to work on these computer terminals and interact with what they thought was a human being.
And they were snookered.
They were snookered.
Yeah.
And human beings, we play with dolls as children.
Sure. But
we project, we
yeah.
project human features onto the night sky.
Oh, sure. But
Right?
let me.
But you're talking about the Turing test, basically, right?
Yeah, it's
In a
similar.
way.
Yeah, what is called the
Yeah,
Turing test,
and
which is not really.
Yeah,
But,
but there are these chatbots and that you see in this contest to actually pass the Turing test, and they haven't come close.
Well,
Yeah.
they did
sometimes
with the paranoid.
sometimes they fool you, but if you really probe them, you
But the
realize
thing
that
about it,
there's nothing there. Yeah.
I